Page of your People Daily. On the PD's front page, Ruto team seeks new route to 2022. A day after a mixed reception at the Coast BBI Regional Forum in Mombasa, legislators allied to DP trooped to Naivasha to mount a comeback strategy as they call for adoption of contentious 2005 Bomas draft, saying it addresses current reform concerns. That's the lead story in your copy of your PD this morning. Also, in your health, in your PD, alarm as a deadly leprosy awakens. That's a story that you can get, of course, in your copy of your PD this morning. Every single morning, we remind you that the PD is free, so you can get it and, of course, get fully informed as well. Moving on now to the Standard. Front page of the Standard, Uhuru and Raila take handshake to U.S. prayer talks. For the first time, the president and ODM leader are expected to take to the international stage in early February to showcase a political truce that has won global acclaim. That's a story that you can get in your copy of your Standard this morning. Also on the front page, fallout in Jubilee over BBI retreat in Naivasha. DP allied MPs, of course, insisting all ruling party MPs had been invited to the talks. But MPs allied to the president distanced themselves from forum. What really is going on right there is a story that you can get in your Standard. Also, matters business, matters economy, being touched on the front page of the Standard. Tears as auctions account for a third of properties on sale. Alarm of a rising number of property owners defaulting on loans and mortgages as supplier outstrips demand, signaling the harsh economic times. That's a story that you can get in your copy of your Standard today. Front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto allies retreat to counter Raila wave, says the Daily Nation. Surprise change of heart comes only hours after some leaders in Tanga faction of Jubilee attended rally in Mombasa and pledged to support the BBI. DP supporters say that they are uncomfortable with ongoing meetings because Raila and ODM have already branded themselves as the public face of the BBI, and that's a problem found therein. It's a question that you can answer, of course, as you read the Daily Nation this morning. Front page of the Star, Mutunga, I was not bribed over 2013 Raila case, saying blaming judiciary in graft war is a diversionary strategy. The XCJ was neither pressured by Jubilee nor Cord Coalition during that particular time. That's a story you can get in the Star. Also in the Star, it's all about the Jubilee divide. Tired of waiting, Ruto allies call for a PG meeting as far as Jubilee is concerned. And they've been doing that for quite a while, discussing that as well. Front page of the Business Daily, SACCO's win as member savings grow to 766 billion Kenya shillings. Treasury credits strict governance rules for growth as analysts link it to higher dividend payouts. Those matters business can be found in your copy of your Business Daily this morning. Lots to discuss as well after a very eventful weekend, so I'll get to my panelists to do exactly that. This morning I'm joined by Dennis Tumbi, governance expert. Good morning. Good morning. Back this year for the first time, Michelle Oluoch, governance expert as well. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you too.
I hope 2020 started off well.
I think it's okay for me now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
now.
Yeah, it's 27th of January, so I should be having nice things to say so that February can look brighter.
Fantastic stuff. We'll do exactly that. Okay, let's jump right into it and talk about BBI rally in Mombasa. Did it meet your expectations? Is that what you expected to see?
Wow. Good morning, viewers. That's a very interesting question because we need to ask ourselves whether the platform served the interests of the politicians or the interest of Kenyans. Mm-hmm. And as we saw it, I think it was one of the biggest betrayals that Kenyans have seen so far. And of course, you knew the charades and the dramas that were going through. And most importantly, the insincere nature at which politicians gathered, very well knowing they hate each other, they dislike each other, I think they danced with the devil, and they spoke falsehoods, things that themselves don't even properly understand. And they were briefed for particular reasons. We saw the enmity. We saw, I think, somebody, I think an MCA in Nairobi assaulting Honorable Moses Kuria, and many other things. So I think it was very politically charged. Mm-hmm. And I think the critical questions we need to ask ourselves as we drum up, for the Constitution, we must ask ourselves absolutely critical matters, because this is the entire future of a nation. Complex policy, complex economic, complex social, and complex political matters being handled in a reckless platform, just like that. Mm-hmm. And that's how we lose directions. We must carefully look and ask ourselves, is this a legal process or is it a political thing? Mm-hmm. You understand? So that, because we may lose way, just the same way that we have lost the way. And I ask myself, are we this disorganized as a nation? You know? And all these platforms, what happens to the very critical things that we need to discuss as a nation? And if it goes like this and we are not able to discuss fluently and coherently matters that are affecting Wanjiko economically and socially, when we get to the referendum, because the referendum doesn't speak to Wanjiko, the referendum are complex national matters that are reduced to a yes or a no. So for those platforms, and that's what, if you look at Mombasa, the greatest question that they were asking and they were talking about was historical land injustices. Was that question answered? Well, I think the 16 questions that they handed over to Honorable Raila. Is he a member of the technical team? You understand? So we must ask ourselves extremely critical matters. And as Wanjiko, we must not follow that gravy trail that those politicians are sorting themselves. We must know that politicians are not the end. They are merely the means. And you know what? We must now hijack that bus as Wanjiko and start talking about critical matters, including the very nature that the very constitution we have has never been fully implemented, yet there are calls to overhaul it. And let me tell you something. Constitutional or legal reforms do not necessarily mean a good thing. It could just mean hijacking the social contract that we have given the government, hijacking our issues, and running with theirs. Okay. So I think the discourse must be very clear from a Wanjiko perspective, or whether are we losing the track, are we in charge as Wanjiko, or have they hijacked the social contract that we give to them?
Okay, we'll be talking about that also in just a bit. We're also joined by Edward Wanyonyi. He's a media trainer and researcher as well. Good morning, Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're talking about, or as we looked at Mombasa, the BBI rally that took place right there, and whether it met expectations or not. Michelle, looking at it, it almost felt like a pledge to Raila Odinga, because everybody who came on stage said, we are supporting you, we are behind you all the way. After Kingi spoke about what the coastal people want, from there it seemed like it was just a pledge to the former PM, and that was it.
Yeah, you know, for me, it did not meet my expectations. I was slightly or extremely disappointed, because if you look at it and how they were sending out the invitations, of course, we are all privy to these kinds of information. They were calling it a consultative forum. And then, so what you would essentially expect of a consultative forum is actually critical, pertinent issues being discussed as regards this document. Because then, if I remember correctly, I'm asking myself, they launched the document in Bomas. So then after the document was launched, it was supposed to be taken to the public for consultations so that they can then give back their reviews on what they think about the document and how they want to go about it moving forward. But then you see, I don't think people are concentrating on the right issues or topics to discuss, because then the way they're doing these regional consultative forums is people are supposed to give back their reviews on how they think they should go forward. But looking at how the whole rally went on Saturday, I was like, okay, I think we are focusing on the wrong things, but it's fine. It's then now the role of the people who actually understand what's going on to make sure people understand that this is what you're supposed to do, because then they have already forced it down our throats. We are taking it whether we like it or not. But then now that they've forced it down our throats, we need to make sure that it is actually going to make sense for us at the end of the day. So then now, if you go there and you know, you're talking about you're pledging your loyalty, and you know you're trying to strategically position yourself so that by the end of the day, in as much as they have forced it down our throat, I know what I will get at the end of it, then you know it's not genuine. So then, like I said this, and I will say again, it was as consultative stakeholder engagement. But you see, who are the stakeholders in this matter? It looked like the stakeholders in this are the politicians. So then you keep asking yourself, then if these people know what is expected, and they cannot tell the public, the common mwananchi, what is expected and what they should do, and the common mwananchi does not understand this, so then where do they really stand in all of these BBI shenanigans?
Wanyonyi, let me come to you, because you're coming at it from a point of view where you'll hear the politicians urging the citizenry, read this document, understand it so that you can understand what's in it. We still don't have the public copies being published out yet. If they want to get it, they still have to go online. Yet we're having the rallies taking place. So does it seem like The train is taking its course whether we read it or not. Now it seems like the referendum is certain, something that Senator Orengo had spoken about earlier, and people are like, how are we getting to that particular point? But from Mombasa, it seems like the train has left the station, as they said. Whether Wanyonyi you read it or not, whether you accept it or not, there's a course it's going to take, whether you're on board or not.
I think we need to be aware that when the Jubilee government came into power in 2013 with the tyranny of numbers as a mantra, then the public needed to realize that that is going to carry throughout. And so there is no force of public participation that is going to be in that process at all times. And so when you have tyranny of numbers in parliament, it is not just moving into even now government agenda. And with that, then there is just endorsement as opposed to participation. Right. Participation would have required now the public engaging in the process and saying, do we need a referendum at this time? Do we feel like this is the moment for national renewal as a country? Do we feel that now a referendum gives us the only opportunity for national renewal? But there is nothing like that. Right. And so once the handshake came into place, there is no opportunity for any third force or any counter argument to the main narrative. And so play the ball. Whether you have read it or not, no. Your representatives have read it and they are endorsing it. These representatives, remember, some of them are governors who are coming at the tail end of their second term. They need to find relevance for themselves. Right. So at what point are you going to see the interests of the public? So it's a catch-22. And it's interesting because even as we say that, we had some vox pops on the ground just asking the people who had attended the particular rally what they expected, what they wanted to address. And you could hear they were talking about the economy over and over and over again. Employment is also a very major issue right there. But on stage, it was all about the executive PM and the referendum and people being asked, do you support the referendum or not? You said tyranny of numbers is how they got in. How do you make sure now we wrest this particular process from them and back to make it a people's initiative? The challenge which you have is that there is no time we've ever activated a clause in terms of parliamentary accountability. And so because our parliamentarians are the key cogs in this process, the politicians are doing it, it's going to be a challenge for us to be able to now wrest the process from them anytime soon. I think for me the question for the country needs to ask itself at this moment is that beyond and after the PBI, what next? And is it possible that we're going to have a national renewal by the citizenry beyond this process? Because this process is going to move on, whether we like it or not, whether our views are inside or not, it's going to move on. It's a situation whereby there is no opposition that the government feels is going to come outside now that there's a handshake. And parliamentarians, all of them are looking at how they can get into new seats. Governors who are coming to their second term, they're looking at getting into new positions of change and power. And so it's almost gone. And because we signed this with the referendum that we did in 2005, that whereby once there's a political process led, then people could not sit by side and wait for it to be administered. Right.
Yes, you've actually asked a very good question. At what point will you take this from them?
Is it possible even to do that? At where we are right now?
I feel like, like he said, they got in by tyranny of numbers. So I feel like we have the tyranny of numbers. Unless we are going by the virtue of they're forcing it down our throat, whether we like it or not. We have when the document will be taken back to the common man in chief for them to vote for whether the referendum should pass or not. That is where we have our power. And I think the general feeling, I would like to think, the general feeling is Kenyans are facing more pertinent issues other than political and governance issues. So we have economic issues, we have health, we have disaster management and all that. So then, if that is the general feeling, I believe that the general population should be able to not allow for this referendum to go through unless they're forcing it down our throat, and we already know the end, whether we participate or not. So that is the key area that I'm actually keen to look at, because if they've decided the train has already left the station, then we have that time where we'll be voting for the referendum to pass or not, to actually decide if this is what we want or not. So that is where I think it is at.
Then it's coming from a backdrop where we've seen lots of job loss, companies shutting down. Everyone, and they talk about really what's affecting them right now, you don't hear people saying that I need a prime minister. People are saying I need more jobs, hakuna pesa. That's the talk that you'll hear on the ground. But politically, it's a whole different narrative going on. When Wanyonyi says, this process has gone, they came with tyranny of numbers, we should have seen this coming, we didn't, so it's gone. It almost feels like then we are lost. This one, there's no way we can get this back. How do we fight back on this particular issue?
Yeah, you know, the truth is that, you know, the narrative that Mr. Onyonyi has said is correct, but we must be careful not to peddle it, because then we fall into their trap. And it's true that Jubilee government came into power, you know, at the auspices of mobocracy, the rule by the majority, dhuraku, whatever it is that it is. So that is devoid of thinking. It's an emotional campaign that sways you left or right without thinking about your rights, without thinking about the future of your children, without thinking about the integrity of the politicians themselves. The reason why they have never constitutionalized Chapter 6 of the Constitution, without thinking whether the first time did they deliver the promises or didn't they deliver the promises. Without thinking, it doesn't matter how strongly you shout. You go back to your poor background, to the fact that you may not have food or whatever it is. So one of the things that I came today as a peddler of hope and a peddler of power. The truth of the fact is that if this is a political process, it will run possibly devoid of a legal process. So we must fully have faith in our constitution, that the constitution empowers us as Wanjiku to dictate matters and terms of this country. And by the way, so far we know that BBI has possibly no legal basis, even in its formation. And why do we know that? Because it was absolutely devoid of public participation. You understand? Is this the will of Wanjiku, or is this the will of two principals? At what point did they consult us? Where are we coming? On the table, not as people who are being told what to do, but as decision makers. That, you know, our rights are then enshrined there. And let me tell you what, referendums are not the very democratic things. Because if we go back to the Bomas draft, the fact that they fired the Ashpa guy, the fact that when, you know, we did the Kilifi bid and the Wako draft and all that, the process had already been hijacked by the politicians themselves. So the truth of the fact is that traditionally, even across the world, scholars are saying that the referendums are tools of the few in power to sway the emotions of the people and to make sure that they blinden people on the current woes that the people are going through. Because we need to ask ourselves, is a referendum going to resolve my issues of bread and butter? Is the referendum going to make school fees cheaper? Is the referendum going to make me buy books cheaper? Is it going to make me access health care? You understand? Is it going to make to have a resolve on the agriculture crisis that we have in this country and the climate crisis we have in this country? Is the referendum my hope or not? Or is that the solution? Or are we unable to discuss critical matters? Is Parliament unable to resolve these things? Is the executive unable to resolve the current economic woes of Wanjiku? I called my grandmother and I did a test. And I said, can you explain to me what BBI is? She told me in my language, Kanda Uko. Because, and I realized in her area, she's one of the biggest tea farmers. Yet she has no remote idea what BBI is. And then I called a politician who also didn't know whether they are going left or right. And let me tell you what. So it means if it's a political process, they might likely avoid the root of the masses, the popular opinion. So likely they're going to go through the parliamentary option because it's easy to buy the Kenyan politician against the interest of Wanjiku. Because traditionally, our parliament has been for rent. And Honorable Moses Kuria said this very clearly, that if there's proper money, and you know referendums are not expensive, it's one vote, one man. You understand? And by virtue, Kenyans are going to snob it anyway. And our laws don't recognize a protest vote. The white vote, where the majority don't vote, is a language saying we don't like what you're doing. But who cares anyway? So even if they have 300 people voting for us, it will sway.
Okay,
you know,
we'll have to take a break at that particular point when you come back.
So we have to be very careful about the trajectory.
And of course, that's something we also want to talk about as well as we move on, because it seems like the debate moved from if there will be a referendum to when we'll have this particular referendum. We're now talking about July being a possible date. Front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto allies retreat to counter Raila wave. Front page of the PD, Ruto team 6 new route to 2022. Murkomen was put on the spot, of course, in Mombasa, asked by Governor Joho, is a referendum or not? He said he's supporting it as well fully. So let's talk about this change of tack or strategy moving forward on that particular issue. We want your views on this as well. You can tweet us at K24 TV. We'll be having our WhatsApp number right at the bottom of your screen, so you can WhatsApp us as well. We are back after the break.
Now it's time for the newspaper review. Join